Hello Fantasy Endgame community, I am Pierre, here to help you with fantasy baseball draft prep by giving you my top 5 pitcher breakouts for the 2022 season. Alright, let's get into it and start with a guy you probably heard of, and that is Shane Baz of the Tampa Bay Rays. So formerly a first round pick of the Pittsburgh Pirates, luckily for us, he moved on from a franchise that, well, isn't known for developing young pitching quite so well to the Rays, who don't have enough good arms, it seems like these days. The only issue is that he's with Tampa Bay, a team that has so many good arms, it's hard to say where he'll slot. Is he going to be in the rotation? When is he even going to be called up? Right now, Roster Resource doesn't have him pegged for a rotation spot, has him starting the year in the minors, which is entirely possible. So we'll see what happens, but this is a guy we know has the ability to flash no matter where he's used, when he shows up. 2.03 ERA, 0.68 whip, only 13 innings last year, but still, he showed his immense talent. He's got the strikeout upside, and of course, he's on a team that you know will compete in a very favorable home park for sure. All right, next up, I want to talk about Tanner Houck of the Boston Red Sox. Somebody I had my eye on last year. He definitely has the ability to be a dominant pitcher. The question is, how will he be used? He's somebody who had 87 strikeouts last year in just 69 innings pitched. His tall 6'5" frame and his fastball give him the ability to pile up strikeouts. But will he be in the rotation, just like we asked with Baz? It's hard to say, but you know what? Given the state of the Red Sox rotation, you got guys like Chris Sale, Nathan Eovaldi, Rich Hill, Michael Wacha. I think it's safe to say at least one of those guys won't last too long without hitting the IL. Houck, even if he is a swingman or a long reliever, that still has fantasy value. Don't forget, you don't have to be a starting pitcher to be fantasy relevant. We've seen a lot of guys do that. He can still give you those counting stats with strikeouts. He can definitely win some games for you in Boston. So keep Houck in mind, and he's available just inside the top 200 overall. All right, let's go with some name recognition here, and that is the former first overall pick, Casey Mize of the Detroit Tigers. Now, Mize had a miserable rookie season along with several other Tiger pitchers in 2020. Didn't do a lot better in 2021, but he did take steps forward, had some quality starts there. But the problem for fantasy is that his ratios, well, they weren't great, but his strikeout numbers were so low, only 19% K rate. That's not going to get the job done. What are we hoping for with Mize? All right, we can't just go off of name recognition alone. Even though the strikeouts weren't there, he found a way to pitch to contact. He had a 48% ground ball rate. This is somebody who has a very effective cutter, and he's using it to get hitters out. If he can take a step forward in terms of making batters chase a little bit more, then I can see that strikeout number going up. It may not be phenomenal. Maybe we're looking at 24-25% at the most. It will take him some time to really figure out how to fool hitters, but I think he takes enough of a step forward that he can sit at the back end of your rotation and maybe even break out. Next up is Josiah Gray of the Washington Nationals. Gray was a prospect from the Dodgers who went over that massive trade. You might remember the biggest deal of the trade deadline, Trey Turner and Max Scherzer going to the Dodgers in an effort to bring home another championship. Didn't work out, but you know what? Now the Nationals have 2 high-end prospects to show for it. That is Gray as a pitcher and Keibert Ruiz as a catcher. So what do we look for with Gray? Well, he was a little bit all over the place last year. Was hit quite hard, that 12.2% barrel rate along with some ugly ratios. Makes it seem like he needs a lot more experience before we can trust him, especially in fantasy. Now, here's the thing. Even though he was hit hard at times, he had a 219 expected batting average, which shows that he wasn't really hit that frequently. It's just when he was hit hard. But I like his stuff. He has a fastball that sits around 95, and he has 2 secondary pitches, his curve and his slider, that both induce a 45% or higher whiff rate. That's really good. So if he can just make the fastball a little less predictable, mix up his pitches better, I think this is a guy that has a chance to take that big leap at the back end of the draft. He's available after pick 300. It's not, a big risk to take him as a flyer, stash him on the bench, and see what happens. Last but not least is actually one of my favorite prospects, a guy that I took late in the TGFBI, that's the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational Draft last year. Had him for a while. Ultimately did have to let him go to make some other waiver moves, and then picked him back up later in the year when he started to show some signs of progress. So Adbert Alzolay of the Chicago Cubs is somebody who is a young prospect. He's got 6 pitches in his arsenal, which is impressive. Of course, he doesn't use them all, but here's the thing. He was messing around with his pitch mix last year, and he made the slider, which he was maybe his fourth most frequently used pitch in 2020, his primary pitch last year. It worked for the most part. He got a high whiff rate with that pitch, and the problem is that as a starter, he still didn't put it all together with that consistency. He was a little uneven. So when he was in relief late in the season, he looked really good. He does have a chance to compete for a rotation spot. Of course, the Cubs, not much there in terms of arms that you could call dependable these days. So he'll have a chance to win that spot. But you know what? Maybe better served as their closer. And in that case, his stock goes way up. Somebody you can get at pick 331 who potentially can get you 20 plus saves. All right, so I like Alzolay regardless of his role. I like the talent and I like the opportunity. All right, those are my top 5 pitcher breakout candidates for 2022. We're here all season long to help you win. Thanks for watching.